Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce the speaker for today. Is Ross Dawson. He's a globally recognized futurist, entrepreneur, keynote speaker, strategy advisor, and best-selling author that will discuss leadership of the future work. Let me give you my point of view of what importance is this lecture. We are living in a time of changes, and still we are not seeing all the changes that are going to come with technology. As in the job of being futurist is really difficult. We have examples like Malthus or Marx, but if you see all the prediction of these people were wrong, and the reason that they were wrong was technology. And these talks are going to be on technology and how technology are going to affect the leadership and the jobs that people are going to have in the future. Dawson is a CEO and chief futurist of the R7 group of companies, which incorporates the marketing and innovation of the RH7 and multiple group ventures, and also is the author of many books, including Living Networks, Developing Knowledge-Based Client Relationships, and also have multiple appearances in CNN, Bloomberg, TV. So join me in welcoming Ross Dawson, please.
Thank you. So good evening and welcome to the future of work. And so if we look at the future, one of the deepest and most important domains is that of the future of work. And I think there's many people will be surprised over the next decade and even less around how radical some of the shifts are in the world of work. So it's something which we need to look at, we need to explore, we need to think about, we need to prepare for, because this is not just our livelihoods or those of our children or those of our people. It is in fact the fundamental underpinning not just of society, but indeed our identity, who we are, why we are alive, what is our role in society. So if we look at change, if we look at what's happening, and we need to look at the leadership that is required. What are the actions that we can take, that we must take today to be able to shape that to be a positive world? There are deep uncertainties. There is potential for dramatic disruption of the world of work moving forward in ways which are not as positive. Yet, if I firmly believe that if we take the right steps now, if we understand what is required and we shape that future, we can be leaders and we can create a more positive future of work. And that's a fundamentally important role for all of us, but absolutely from a university context as well. So if we look at that, we can see that the fundamental distinction is that between humans and machines. And in this video, you can see that there are 3 humans and there are 3 robots. And if you have a look, you can pretty likely work out which one is which. Now, this is a fairly old video. I think it was almost 5 years ago since it was created when Professor Ishiguro, who was in the center there, demonstrated some of the robots which he had created. But we are moving closer and closer where we will not be able to discern between humans and machines, where there's a finer and finer boundary between what they can do and their role in society. So James Cass put it well when he said that finite players play within boundaries, but infinite players play with boundaries. And that's what we need to do. Is these are the boundaries of the way in which we think things have worked, that things work in terms of discipline or a field of study or a job or a role or a description or what an organization is. These are the boundaries which we need to then play with, because the world will not obey those boundaries. We'll transcend that in many ways. So this is the field which we need to explore, to play with the boundaries and find what it is, how we can play with that to be able to create a more positive future of work. So what I want to quickly do this evening is look first of all at this idea of acceleration, accelerating technology, but also society, because it is not just technology that is changing. We are also changing. Our society is changing, and indeed the structure of how it is that the economy works. This is disrupting work. which means that we need new capabilities to develop the capabilities that are relevant for this new world, shaping new possibilities for what work can be, potential solutions for how we can create a better world, and finally, the leadership that is required to be able to shape that. So we begin by looking at accelerating technology, and there's seen an extraordinary pace of change on many fronts. Part of it is that we are connected as never before. And it's not that long since we were blessed with the gift of connectivity to all of the world's information in our pockets. But now that is extending even further, and very relevantly, we're seeing that in the next 3 to 4 years, another 2 billion people on the planet will be connected. And these are the new people who are having access, not just to that information, to that education that can be provided on these channels and digital forms. This broadening of education, this broadening of access. Also seeing that this explosion of data, so data about the world around us, data gathered from what's happening, and absolutely data about individuals. In this case, this shows that we can gather from a crowd, not just identifying people's gender and their likely age and socioeconomic status, but also their emotions. And so this becomes incredibly rich data from which we can learn things and do things. Now, data is the bedrock for machines to learn. And they're able to learn, become more and more sophisticated. So it was in 1997 that a chess grandmaster was first beaten by a computer. Garry Kasparov was beaten by Deep Blue. And so this was something where chess, yes, it is complex, but it's something where a sufficiently powerful computer can look at all the permutations and choose the ones which are likely to lead it to success. At the time, people anticipated that it might be 100 years until a computer could beat the best humans at Go, because Go is a far more complex game. The number of positions on the Go board exceed the number of molecules in the known universe. So it's not something where you can compute it. You can't work out what the possibilities are. You have to develop effective strategies. So just in the last year now, we've had basically the second best and the best masters at Go being beaten by computers, Google's DeepMind. Now, what's interesting is that this game has been played for 2,500 years. And the best players of today have studied that ancient history of the game and the best strategies. Yet they are learning from the machine. They are learning new strategies. They're discovering previously unseen ways to be able to play the game of Go and beat humans. So this particular video shows exactly the same algorithm, Google DeepMind, playing a far simpler game, that of Breakout, where initially it's given, the only instructions it's given is you can move that little bar on the bottom and your objective is to get as many points as possible. And initially, it doesn't know what it's doing, it's just moving around randomly until it starts to discover that if it's in the right place where the ball is coming down, it's actually able to bounce it back. It's not being given any instruction, any tutoring, and a mentorship. It is discovering that for itself. So that's after just 2 hours, but after 2 more hours, so a total of 4 hours of playing the game, it's able to work out that if it bounces the ball back and forth on the left-hand side, it can actually make a little channel to get through where the ball can bounce it around it and be able to do all the work for it. So creating and discovering new strategies just by being able to learn. And so this foundation of machine learning is fundamentally applying how processing power can be applied to learning new things. Beyond that, of course, we already have the best autonomous cars being better than the average human driver, which is not too hard. And they're able to do these things which are not just routine, but in fact unpredictable. Driving a car, yes, there are many, many scenarios we need to build into that. But as these cars drive further and further, millions of miles, literally, they're able to have the whole full range panoply of different possibilities to be able to integrate into finding out what the effective responses are. But technology and acceleration is not just about technology, it's around the interfaces between humans and machines. How humans can use augmented reality, virtual reality, gesture control, eye gaze tracking, and other domains in order to be able to control computers and to be able to receive information in a far richer way. And just as we've moved from TVs and desktop computers to laptops and tablets, we are now moving to the smartphone's primary interface. We will move beyond that. To those people who wear glasses, will find it far more efficient than rather having to take things out of their pocket and look at them to be able to see that information. So this is part of our transformation, is our interfaces to technology. So society is changing as fast as technology, I believe. And there's one facet is that technology is shaping who we are. It's giving us more propensities to believe in openness and flows of information. But indeed, our attitudes are shaping the technologies that we are creating this spiral. As Marshall McLuhan said, we shape our tools and thereby our tools shape us. But that actually becomes this flow where it is in fact accelerating social change. And part of that change is the simple social drive that we expect more on just about every possible front. Part of that expectation is an expectation of opportunity. And we can see if we look globally, there are just around 10 million people on the planet who have more than $1 million in liquid assets. And there is still, in fact, fortunately, greatly reducing over the last, even over the last 10 years. We have 400 million people fewer from those who are still earning less than $1 a day. But there's still 800 million people on the planet who earn less than $1 a day, and around 4 billion people who are earning between $1 and $10 a day, who, amongst other things, see as never before what is possible, what can be done, what is happening in society, what is possible for them. And that visibility of that opportunity is creating that expectation that people will have that opportunity to better themselves, to be able to create better things for their children, for their families than ever before. And certainly within the context of America as well, in being able to see that opportunity and be able to realize that through education at institutions such as Stony Brook. There's also an expectation of excellence in service and quality. This is heightening it every time. Every time we experience something which is better than what we've experienced before, that becomes the bar which we compare the service or the quality or the standard of education which we're receiving. We also expect, and this is increasingly driven by a younger generation, that we are not just leading our lives to earn an income and to be stable, but we feel that there is a meaning, that we are having an impact, a positive impact on the world in whatever sense. And these are all flowing into what we could look at this flow of power to the individual. And we are seeing power flow from governments to citizens. We're seeing power flow from corporations to their customers, from employers to employees, from doctors to patients. And this is still a battle well fought, absolutely. But we are seeing this expectation by individuals that they are not just cogs in the machine, but people that can and will shape their lives. So the structure of the economy is in fact rapidly changing, and this is driven by the rise of networks. So the internet is, of course, a network, and as we've seen that grow and flourish with a scale field structure, we're seeing that happens in infrastructure around us. We're seeing that these networks are, in fact, not just expressions of our civilization we require, but also of fundamental parts of our biology. Our brain is a network with a very similar topology to the internet. In fact, cellular structure, it has a deep network structure. So as we're seeing this growth of this network structure, we're seeing that this is actually changing the nature of how we work. So we're seeing the growth of platforms such as Uber and Airbnb and Upwork. These are all becoming platforms where they were expressions of the network economy. So we need to understand what these platforms are, and essentially this is a change of what people, the way in which conceive of an organization. An organization is something which creates a product or a service and sells it, to one that connects, that enables others to connect to create value. And to do this, they need to be able to create some kind of a base where people can readily connect into that, be that an app or other information flow, and some kind of rules and guidance around how that is used. So this creates on one side, a set of marketplaces. So if you're taking an Uber or Lyft, essentially there's a pool of drivers who are happy to drive you around. If they've got a relatively recent car and don't have a criminal record, they're able to do that. And if you're wanting to get a ride, then you're able to do that. So this marketplace is matching the two. I need a ride, someone's around the corner and is willing to drive me, and connecting the two. Seeing that in a whole array of domains, in terms of work, in terms of physical space, in terms of innovation, in terms of finance with the rise of peer-to-peer lending. But also seeing whole new ways in which these are aggregated, where we're getting not just an individual worker connected to somebody who wants work done, but indeed ways in which they are brought together, where the best are selected, where the ideas are combined into new ways. For example, with crowdfunding or ideation or expert platforms. So you're getting value from the many by algorithms and structures that distill that. So augmenting this whole rise of platforms and distributed systems, this whole network world, is of course blockchain, and on top of that, Bitcoin. So this particular chart shows the market capitalization of cryptocurrencies, currently around $167 billion, so which is around 5% of US M1 money supply at the moment. So it's essentially, in a global context, a significant currency base. But more importantly, blockchain as an enabler below that is create or distributed systems which support this growth of this network or distributed structure of the economy. So all of these forces, in terms of accelerating technology in society and changing structure to the economy, are disrupting work. And it's critical to understand that this is not new, since arguably the history of humanity is one of disrupting work. From the plow, first time we created an ox to pull a plow, that was disrupting human labor. Of course, the most famous disruption of work was when the spinning jenny was invented. Now, important thing to realize and remember that was before that, essentially all cloth was woven by hand. So essentially, this was a deep foundation to the economy, an enormous pool of labor required for simply to be able to have the clothes which they needed to wear. And whilst many people were put out of work for a while, new jobs were created, and I don't think anybody wants to return to a world where many of the population have to weave cloth by hand as a way of making their livelihood. Since then, we've had many more innovations and things which have destroyed jobs, yet we have always continued to create jobs. So the current population of the United States is, just thinking through, it's probably around, it's well over 100 million more than it was 50 years ago. And so during that time, employment rates are essentially very close to that. We have created tens of millions more jobs, whilst literally tens of millions of jobs have been destroyed, notably in agriculture, in manufacturing. So now the vectors of disruption are first that work can be done anywhere. And we know that any knowledge work can be done anywhere, but also in terms of much physical work. So this shows, say, mines in Western Australia, which are being operated by a pool of people 1,000 miles away. So machines can be operated remotely using autonomous machines and remote control, and you do not need to be physically there to be doing this work. And in fact, some people have argued that all mining operations in the world could be run from a single office. People don't, or very few people need to be actually physically on the ground. But at the same time as this connectivity enables not just the platforms of these worlds, which means that any task which you can think of can be done by anybody anywhere around the world. But now machines are beginning in many domains to rival human capabilities. So this little chart shows one domain of performance in artificial intelligence, conversational voice recognition. So from 2012 through to present day. So from the red dotted line shows human performance rates around an accuracy of over 94%. And from error rates of 16%, essentially through the technologies of deep learning, we have now exceeded human capabilities. And we're seeing this whole array. There's many domains where machine learning and deep learning and artificial intelligence more broadly are able to get close to, sometimes match, or sometimes exceed human capabilities. So we're seeing that, again, this can be applied in knowledge work and also be applied in physical work. So this is Baxter, and this can do some very simple repetitive tasks, and it can be very easily programmed. In fact, all you do to program it is simply to take it and to show it what needs to be done, and that is the act of programming it. It then knows what to do. So this is a just $22,000. It's able to do these manual tasks repetitively, indefinitely. It can be used as a platform for programming itself. So this means that, again, many of the human tasks, which can be done in assembly lines, can now be done by machines. And taking that step beyond, the robots in the physical world start to move into a retail space, where, for example, in the Orchard Supply homes run by Lowe's, that robots can speak English and Spanish, they can interact with you, and you can actually show it things, it can recognize what they are, and be able to guide you down the aisles to where that particular object is located. So, and beyond that, there's also emotional engagement. So this little video shows a company from Soul Machines. So Mark Sagar, the founder, won 2 Oscars, one for creating the faces of the Na'vi aliens in the movie Avatar. So understanding facial expression, how we engage with that. And this is a video of this artificial intelligence who engaging with somebody to advise them on buying a credit card, which credit card is the right one for them, and trying to empathize with them and be able to respond to their emotions as they went. So this disruption is changing the nature of work. And so if we look at, this is routine work in the United States from 1967 to in the last few years from now. So if we then look at non-routine cognitive work, so where people are thinking and moving beyond that, that's continued to rise, so I'm plateauing a little bit. And for now, we are starting to see that non-routine manual work is in fact continuing to increase. So things like plumbing or other tradespeople jobs are in fact increasing. Yet this is one of the domains where we risk that turning around. Driving is a non-routine manual task. Yet that is one where we will start to see this shift as we see now essentially the legislation is now the issue which will blocking or which will finally unfold in allowing autonomous cars to replace many of the people who are driving around trucks and cabs today. So a key implication of this is in terms of the polarization of work. So this chart shows US job growth and destruction over the last few decades. On the left-hand side, it shows the least skilled jobs. On the right-hand side, it shows the most skilled jobs. And what you can see that in the 80s, which is the blue line, there was a reduction in low-skilled jobs, and there was a growth in high-skilled jobs. In the 90s, the light green line, there was a growth in low-skilled jobs and a strong growth in high-skilled jobs. And in the noughties, from 99 to 2007, there was a strong growth in low-skilled jobs and no growth in high-skilled jobs. But what you will see that at no point was there ever growth in the middle. In fact, only a reduction. So we have seen and are continuing to see these forces of polarization, and that's one of the implications of a network-connected economy is that we do see these forces of polarization, where absolutely there is this growth in global workers, people in New York City and in many other places around the world, who are able to attract the fruits of global expertise, and a big growth in the low-skilled jobs, often very service jobs. But these are some of the ones that are most at risk of automation moving forward. So from that, we need to look at what are the capabilities? What do we require to succeed in a dramatically shifting world of work? And this little framework I created looks at humans in the future of work, and which you can find by searching for humans in the future of work. As we've mentioned, two key domains of disruption, one of connected work and the other of automation. So from that, if we look at the roles of humans, see these three domains, these three domains of what it is to be truly human. So Bob Dylan won the Nobel Prize for Literature, and his expression of his ideas and how he conveyed that and how he evoked emotion and humanity in us is fundamentally human. We will not have machines who are able to do the same things. This is truly human. And that's what we need to focus on. What it is that is truly human, that is not machine-like, which cannot be emulated by machines. So we're seeing that, in fact, machines are forcing us to be more human than ever before. Part of that is in our expertise, in knowing a lot, having the depth and the understanding, the context for that knowledge. This is not just about data or information. It is actually understanding a domain, as is expressed by much of the research happening on this campus. It is absolutely about creativity, imagining, being able to come up with new possibilities, again, an intrinsically human capability. And this applies certainly very obviously in the arts and humanities, but I would argue that science is a deeply creative domain in order to be able to not just to know which directions to push, but how to be able to find the possibilities and make the connections to discover new ways of thinking about the world in which we live, the technology, the engineering which we can use to be able to create that. These are all deeply creative domains. But also, of course, in relationships, understanding people, who it is we are, being able to empathize, to be able to listen, to get people to respond to our engagement, to our communication with them. So these three domains of expertise, creativity, and relationships uncover a whole array of different roles and possibilities and types of work for all of us moving forward. So what this means is that we need to change the nature of work. We need to change the structure of work, and that is around how we design work. There's many facets to this in terms of being able to say, well, how is it that machines and humans work together? How can we design work that embodies and encompasses learning? How it is that we make work fluid, how we can make work so that it can be done anywhere. And also being able to look at this organizations and what it is that make them perform well. Because organizations are ultimately a collection of people creating worthwhile things. Yes, there's capital, yes, there's machinery, yes, there's plant and equipment, but ultimately it's that configuration of humans coming together with them to be able to create that value. And that's going to look substantially different in the future than it has in the past. And ultimately that requires this rich collaboration, this rich flow of ideas, this ability to reconfigure readily, absolutely diversity in terms of not just all of the external things about a person, but indeed the diversity of thinking. These are fundamental to what a high-performance organization will be. So, seems to have, here we go. So the other key domain, there's two other key domains which we need to focus on, is adaptability. The future is unpredictable, except we know that it's going to be changing dramatically. And structures and the disciplines and the organizations and the types of work will absolutely change in the future. So whatever we prepare ourselves for now, we have to be prepared for that to change again. And so adaptability needs to be something that we instill in our children, that universities and educational institutions help develop ourselves, and that we for ourselves need to understand that we must be able to adapt and to change and be flexible. But also critical and fundamental is our ability to collaborate, our ability to work with others. So as the pace of acceleration of knowledge development increases, we must become deeper and deeper experts. We must, if we have an area of expertise, we need to be world-class in a connected world, otherwise there's no real value to that. So we must go deeper and deeper, but the corollary of that depth of knowledge is that we must collaborate. We must work with others. We must be able to find ways to connect different perspectives, different ideas, different backgrounds, different experience, to be able to create new possibilities. And that is what is fundamental capability. And those who are not good at collaborating, working with others, will not be likely to succeed in a world of work moving forward. So I distinguish between capabilities and skills, and to reframe some of the things which I've just been talking about. Saying, okay, one side we've got capabilities, and the other is the specific skills. And these are the ones which are more often studied in a tertiary education context. So in the case of capabilities, as we looked at, creativity, relationships, learning, and the ability to learn. And that's a fundamental capability. And we would hope that that is what primary schools, secondary schools, universities are doing beyond anything else, is giving people the ability to learn, learning how to learn, being better at learning. And I'm not sure that that is always focused on enough. It is, I suppose, perceived to be a bedrock, but it's absolutely fundamental. Unless people can learn, they will not be able to succeed. It is very evidently a world of lifelong learning that we live in. So in terms of the skills, I mean, just a few of the skill domains. One is design. And when I talk about design, this is this idea of focusing on humans and how things work for them. And this is particularly, I think, one of the primary areas of work moving forward is designing interfaces between technologies and humans. And this is, as technology becomes more and more of our world, we need to be able to make that technology work well for humans. And this requires understanding humans. This isn't, again, absolutely not something that can be automated, but is a field of work. Technology in the broader sense, applied science, ways in which we can create things that are useful, that are applied to problems, created to make solutions for the challenges that we have. And technologies in the broader sense, and choosing a domain of technology is important. Analysis in the sense that, yes, data, we are awash in data, and that is growing exponentially. And this, we can, in some ways, that data can feed into machine learning, but those are often going into black boxes that we don't understand. In order for us to make effective decisions, we need to understand what that data means. So this analysis, this ability to take data, often almost incomprehensible amounts of data, and to bring that into something which we can understand, something that we can act on, is a massively growing domain. And many of the technical professions are becoming ones of analysis and communication. And of course, the skills and the understanding of business. How are these tools, technologies, ideas applied in a real-world context? Now, this is not that everybody needs to have all of these skills, but these are some of the foundational skills, specific skills, that do have longevity in a changing world, overlaid on the capabilities which are described. So we've long heard about the T-shaped individual, one that has depth and also breadth. And going beyond that is the idea of the pie-shaped individual, where you have more than one area of expertise. And again, just as when any choice of study or self-development you take, these need to be carefully chosen. But being able to choose for this very deliberately, these two planks, these two directions down in terms of depth gives an enormous opportunity. And these can often be specifically around a type of technology and an application to business or organizations or society. So it could be social studies, they can be business studies, they can be organizational studies, they can be many other domains which are linked to an area of technology discipline. So this dual expertise is truly unique, distinctive, and has value because there is a application area for the technology expertise. And of course, then the nature of work, it is around all work is becoming how is it that machines and humans collaborate. And so IBM Watson famously provides deep analysis to support oncologists by trawling through 2 million journal articles, by looking at data beyond the scope that an individual human can look at. Yet the doctor then looks at and uses that support to be able to make effective decisions. So this is indeed a capability, arguably, in order to working effectively with machines. So stemming from this, well, these capabilities we look at, I think there's a few jobs of the future I would point to, some of which I've already alluded to, in designing interfaces between technology and humans, being able to analyze in order to support decisions in an increasingly complex world, to be able to take data and to be able to mine that data for insights. These are, applying this breadth of human capabilities, understanding emotions. And again, now if you look at the world of business and marketing, experience and customer experience is the most commonly used words at the moment. And pretty obviously, we need to create better experiences for people to come to us. As our expectations rise, we need to create better experiences. And this requires capabilities in not just understanding humans and their emotional response, but also in terms of what are the technologies, what are the tools, how can we combine all of these to create an effective experience for an individual or a group or an organization. And I think I think a great example, one of the PAC's biggest growing job categories over the last decade is that of personal trainer, where people have a bit of spare money, they don't have much time, they want to keep fit, and they have somebody that helps them to keep them on their routine and their fitness regime. Now, that's something which can't be replaced by machines. If a robot tells you to do another 10 push-ups, you're not going to do that. Whereas if someone you have an emotional engagement with tells you that, go on, just go that extra yard, you will respond to that. But now those people need to be able to take the data and the richness that we have from being able to track individuals, their constitutions, their activities, to be able to analyze that, to be able to provide extraordinarily personalized recommendations and insights for an individual. So combining this data and analysis combination with this emotional engagement and inspiring people to action. So this idea of design, so this is taking the framework used by the Stanford D School, essentially the repository of a lot of the ideas around design thinking, which essentially starts from understanding people, empathizing with people, and being able to then understand what solutions, what you're trying to describe, and come back to test things, to come up with ideas, test them, iterate them, going into the lean startup loop of idea, test, learn, and be able to grow that moving forward. But this is, I think, richly expressed in the Japanese concept of ikigai, which is this combination of what we love, what the world needs, what you can be paid for, and what you're good at. And that's an eternal thing which we're looking for. We want to be able to have all of those things. And as we choose our path of education and as we develop our career, we are trying to find, in our path of self-discovery, who is it that I am? What is it that I'm good at? What is it that I want to, positive impact do I want to have? What is it that makes me feel good about myself? And so in this world of disruption, we are seeing many risks that peoples will lose jobs. But there is also this opportunity in this world that is forcing us to humanize ourselves, forcing us to be more human, to develop our capability sets, that we can look to a world where the jobs of the future will be ones that can tap our potential, our ability to be able to tap that ikigai, but also the organizations that will be successful will be the ones which will give the opportunity for individuals to find that, to express that, and as such to attract the best talent in a very mobile, distributed world. So the data is clear. The higher education, the greater your pay. And so in a tertiary context, that means that you are able to exceed and to grow your salaries over time. Now, there's a few things which I suppose are shifting that landscape at the moment. Absolutely, we'll continue to see that more education and deeper and more relevant expertise will continue to pay. But there's overlaid on the formal university or tertiary education structures, seeing this growth of peer learning and social learning. Now, a nice illustration of that is the domain Topcoder. So this is a crowdsourcing site in some domains, yet NASA goes to it for some of its most complex software, because the best coders in the world go there in order to compete and prove they are better than their peers. And what happens is that they divide this big software project for NASA or GE or other big companies and break it down into modules. Each one of those modules, they have a competition to who provide the best solution. Now, the trick is that if, from the small number of people that bid for that module of that software, if you don't win the job, you come second or third, you get to watch how the winner did it. And you're able to then learn from that. So it becomes a learning community. Yes, they are competing, but they're also learning from each other. And we're seeing that the top of every domain of expertise, that the best are very willing to share. That helps them to keep on their game and to move forward. So this kind of structure becomes part of what there is. And we're also seeing the rise of reputation. Again, in a software context, this shows the rankings on Stack Overflow, which is a place where people ask questions around computer science and software, and other people answer them. And if your answers are ranked well by the community, you go up to the top. You are, by these rankings, established at the top of your community. So we're seeing more and more employers going to not just this kind of forum, but also these very rich pools of data available on people's performance and their perception of by their peers, the judgment of their peers. So this starts to create what can be described as distributed credentials. Yes, the university degree of whatever level will continue to have real value, and supported by the reputation and the brand of the university. But we're also seeing that complemented by the capabilities of individuals to be seen to be experts by the nature of the work and the nature of their expertise and how their peers see them. So looking at what it is we can do, what action we can take in this world, because it is up to all of us to be able to try at work to be able to create a better world. And there's some deep, deep uncertainties. The Pew Research Center did a study a few years ago where they looked at the impact of automation and many other disruptive force on the workforce. And they asked the pool of almost 2,000 supposed experts on saying, are you fundamentally positive or negative about the future of work? On the one side, the potential for vast technological unemployment. On the other side, the potential for work to be broader, more fulfilling of our possibilities as humans, as opposed to having a lot of meaningless work today. And 52% were positive and 48% were negative, pretty much straight down the line. So there is this, and these are both possible. It is possible that we will have a negative future of work. It is possible we have a positive future of work, but it depends on the actions we take today. Part of it is the availability of education. And this shows the one laptop per child initiative being taken up in Mongolia. where it's the availability of education and the availability of quality education, such as at Stony Brook, enabling the social mobility, enabling people who have not been advantaged in their younger years to shift to a position where they can take advantage of their education to be able to improve their social status, their earnings, their potential for happiness, and to be a potential to have a positive impact on the world. This is a fundamental human right, and one which it will have the biggest impact. We also need to design work differently. And there's so many business leaders whose question is, when you talk about automation, how many people can I sack and replace with machines? Which is not the right way of thinking about it, because that's not the way it works. There's every single job, including that of a CEO, can be partially automated. There's almost no jobs that can be fully automated. So this is the issue of then we need to redesign work around this complementarity of humans and their unique capabilities, and drawing those out and building those, and then complementing those with machines. So this will mean that you don't have the existing jobs of today, yes or no. It means you require entirely different jobs, entirely different roles, more and more fluid, more and more tapping the breadth of the capabilities of the individuals, combined together in organizations that can be adaptable and flexible and responsive in what is an incredibly rapidly shifting business landscape. And this requires us, and organizations and everyone, to recognize potential, the potential of individuals, being able to develop that potential. And indeed, I think, for all of us to be able to say, what is it that I could do? And having a world where we can recognize that, draw that out, and tap that, drawing on our fullest humanity. Many people have raised this idea of basic income, envisaging a world where potentially many people will lose their jobs, and saying, well, it then becomes this point, if we're having prosperity at a macroeconomic level through vast automation, that there is a human right to be able to get a basic level of income and support if work is not available to everyone. There's been experiments in certain countries like Finland and Netherlands, New Zealand, City of Oakland, some Canadian cities. So this is something which we're now engaging with, is thinking about this. Now there's a couple of deep problems with this idea of basic income. One is that what is envisaged as basic income is extremely basic. It really is survival. And the second is that humans in general live for a sense of meaning, a sense of contribution, of playing a meaningful part in society. So yes, a basic income, if we have significant unemployment, could mean that we don't have vast poverty, but it doesn't mean that we have a society where everyone can contribute. So whilst we are seeing more and more experiments and possibilities with basic income, I think we need to be focusing on how it is we can create meaningful work. So finally, looking at leadership, and essentially the law of requisite variety tells us that only those individuals or those organizations that are as flexible as the world around them can succeed, can choose their path, can go on create the vision they wish. Otherwise, they are simply being buffeted by those winds of change. So if we look at this collaborative leadership, we need to, together, have a vision for what it is we want to create, in terms of tapping human potential, in terms of creating social mobility, in terms of giving opportunity for ensure that those that want it can create possibilities to create a prosperous future of work. We need to look at what are the foundations for that. What education, what support structures, what types of organizations are required for that. Also understand what roadblocks there are in terms of legislation, in terms of attitudes, in terms of structures of today. And look at what are the paths we can take from today which can go over or around or through those roadblocks, be able to tap those foundations to be able to create those visions. We need to look at what collaborations are required between what organizations and what institutions and what individuals, be they government or educational or corporate or not-for-profit, and what collaborations are required to be able to create that vision. And finally, taking action. So Joseph Campbell was a collaborative methodologist, And he studied all the myths and the stories of peoples around the world. And what he found that there is a common story across all of the peoples of the world, which he described as the hero's journey. And in essence, you have people in everyday life who are called out by a challenge or an opportunity to a difficult, challenging world beyond, where some get some assistance, they have many challenges on the way, but finally they get something of value which they can bring back to their community. And I think that these deeply challenging times, but which also represent big opportunities, we need to be heroes and heroines, to be able to hear that call and to go to find that which will be of value to the rich communities we have here at Stony Brook and beyond, to be able to create a positive future of work. So we looked at some of these shifts in terms of acceleration, society, and structure. Look at the disruption of work and the capabilities we require from that. Look at work, some of the solutions which we might look at, and then the leaderships required beyond that. So we are absolutely at the dawn of a new era of work, and we require leadership in order to shape that to be a positive future. So I look forward to what Stony Brook University does to be leaders in creating the future of work. Thank you.
There are questions from the public? Okay.
Hi, thanks for your talk, very insightful. In the jobs for the future list that you have, one of them was a personal reputation manager. I was wondering specifically what is this job about and what sort of degrees can people get in the current year, or how do you get trained in order to work for this possible job in the future?
Absolutely. So essentially, we have had corporate reputation managers for a long time. Companies need to understand that they present a positive face to be able to present themselves in the best possible light. And now, in a connected world, individuals need to be able to do that as well. So this comes from, for example, the reality that potential employers are extremely likely to look at social media, how it is your activities, how it is you're portrayed, how it is your peers see you, what you find when you search in a wide world of information flows. So a personal reputation manager not only, I believe, helps people to present the image that they want to present, to be able to have the right things found, to be able to be seen in the right light, and to build their reputation. But I believe also about fundamentally advising them on what it is they need to be as a person in order to have a positive reputation. So one of the I suppose truths is greater transparency. More and more things are visible. And I believe in this analog with the corporate world. I believe corporate reputation managers need to be making sure that are fundamentally saying, look, we can't cover for you if you're not doing the right thing. If you're doing things which will give you a bad reputation, you're going to have a bad reputation. And so they should be actually shaping the organization to be transparent, to be doing things that are worthy of a good reputation. So I think this personal reputation manager has a couple of things. There's partly a purely digital part of making the right things are seen when people search for who they are. And this is supported by communications degrees and other domains around that, things which support the unfolding world of media and emerging media. But I think that there's also a human element to that of advising and supporting and engaging with people to making sure that in a transparent world, the people are acting in a way that people would grant them the reputation they deserve from their actions.
Thanks. Could you say a few words about the future of universities given universal access to knowledge and information these days?
Absolutely. So I believe that the tertiary education sector will be significantly challenged. And there's a couple of frames to that. One is, as you said, universal access to knowledge, at least in digital form. But that is supplemented now by forums, by peer discussions, a lot of other things which are not just watching videos. and the rise of distributed credentials. So the first thing is the access to the knowledge. The thing which still has, at this point, unique degree is that of a well-established university being able to give credentials. I don't think that's going to disappear, but that will be complemented by various forms of distributed credentials. Globally, we are going to see this polarization. This polarization force is, through internetwork society, is going to apply in universities as well. Top universities will continue to, through their reputation, through their brand, through the reality, and this is, I suppose, plays against the social mobility piece, is the networking of the people who are at that university together and building relationships, and I think that will not go away. Lower credential, lower ranked universities globally will continue to struggle. So there's this, different roles for, I think, different types of universities. But I think that we will see that there are many universities will be challenged. So the brand and reputation of the university is paramount. It is how it is seen. And that is, and there are different, every brand has multiple facets. It is in terms of how good are the people coming out for them, in terms of the quality of their skills, what is their attitude to work and workforce and society. What are the quality of the way in which it engages externally? What is the nature of its role in the local society in which it fits? There's many aspects to the brand of a university which are going to be fundamental in shaping it, because there will be this polarization. And I think I say universities and tertiary institutions will continue to have a very important future, but that will be complemented by other things which in some guises could be seen as competition in terms of being able to give people knowledge and expertise and develop their skills, and to give them credentials which can make them employable. And so one of the issues is, I believe, focusing as much on what I describe as the underlying capabilities as on the very specific domain expertise skills, and which is part of being able to prepare people for work. And I think I still find it extraordinary how employers around the world continue to say that the graduates they hire aren't ready for work, and they've got to put them through their own training program. And there's a massive opportunity there, again, in terms of tertiary institutions and their brand, to be able to be creating people who are better prepared than those from other universities.
Great speech, by the way.
Thank you.
Throughout your speech, you mentioned some AIs from DeepMind to Deep Blue, and they're fairly narrow in scope. But as you mentioned, over the years they've really grown in complexity. Where do you see the field of AI, and will we ever get a general artificial intelligence? What will this mean for the workplace and leadership?
Very, very difficult questions to answer, and I think you can ask any number of people and you get many different answers to that question. I think that the generalization of AI, there's no evidence right now for the generalization of AI. We are getting, as you define a domain, absolutely you can gather the data, apply the machine learning and deep learning algorithms to be able to often do exceptionally well around decision criteria or performance of specific expertise levels. Yet to generalize that is extraordinarily difficult, and I in a sense, I think at this point, what we describe as a generalized AI is in fact a set of well-aggregated domain-specific AIs. And so this is one of the things where, if you look at being a futurist, I think there's a lot of things where you can say, we can be certain this things happen. The time scale, the time frame for that can be extremely unpredictable. So I absolutely believe we can have things which will look like generalized AI. Whether they are actually truly what we consider to be generalized AI is another question. The time frame for that, I mean, it could be as little as a decade. It might be many, many, many decades away. And I think the evidence right now, and that the field is unfolding very quickly, is that it's on the longer end of that spectrum. But these are things which are deeply unpredictable. And just as the field of deep learning transformed AI and machine learning over the space of the last 7 years or so, there may be other different techniques which are developed which transcend what we know to be able to create true general AI.
Okay, one more question.
So you talked about like the possible advancements humans are going to have in terms of AI and so on, and you said machines could make us more human. But do you see all those possible advancements making us more humane, like in terms of value and like maybe like better understanding with each other? Or do you think even after we mastered general AI, we would still use it as weapons to kill each other and like still do what humans have been doing for thousands of years?
That's the big question, isn't it? And so, I mean, one answer to that is it's up to us. And I've described this idea of latent humanity, as in there are aspects of who we are as humans which are becoming expressed, only becoming expressed as we have that. For example, social media. We had no idea, for example, our propensity to share public information until we had social media to express that. And many people today are behaving in ways which they would not have envisaged, a decade ago. So, in a way, as we augment our capabilities through technologies, we are discovering more who we truly are. And in fact, to that fundamental question, are we, and one other way to phrase your question is, are we good or not? And there's obviously no simple answer to that question, as in, yes, we are both. Humanity is fundamentally good, yet is also capable of things that are not good, of course. And as we amplify our capabilities, we'll discover quite which way how that pans out. I believe that it is our choice to be able to shape that. This is not a product of the technologies which we are developing. And but it is, in a way, the biggest single question that we face. And I think we will have a better understanding of ourselves in the coming decades through the power of the technology. And this includes the power of the technology to shape ourselves through genetic engineering, other forms of human augmentation. We are truly creating ourselves, and we will discover who it is that we create from that. So it is a perilous, exciting, extraordinary journey, and an amazing time to be alive. We all, I suppose the thrust of my message today has been, it is our choice. We can choose to do what we can in ourselves and those around us and those we can impact to be more humane, to be more truly what we think is good to be human. So maybe that's a good message to finish on. Thank you. Thank you.